It's probably best if we just start. And so, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Monday morning and the first of this week's webinars. And I'm excited to be with you here today. And first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Karen Spencer, and I am the owner and the chief executive officer of It Can Be Different, which is a life coaching practice dedicated to helping adults that are struggling and are going through a tough time. And typically these adults that find this coaching practice most effective are the ones that have come to realize that they need to change how they think and really open up some perspective, and that they realize they have to change how they think, and the fact that that thinking is rooted in a lot of their past. And if they continue to process things the way they have, that their past will just continue on to their future. And when they come to that realization and that point, then entering into a coaching practice like the one that I follow allows them to very quickly and effectively move through all their limiting decisions and all their blocks, so that they can start to produce and get the life that they so dearly want, and achieve the goals that they've been dreaming about. So that's what It Can Be Different is all about. And I always welcome you, that if you're at all interested in how this could help you, that there is always an opportunity to sign up for a free consultation. And that complimentary consultation can be found on my website with just a click of a button. And during the COVID crisis, which I think we're into week 6 or something right now, I've been offering up these webinars as another service to current clients, past clients, and future clients, so that we can come together as a way to process what's going on, find ways to get through it a little bit easier, and more importantly for me personally, is to encourage people to go deep with this crisis that we're going through, and not to quote unquote waste the opportunity for growth and development. And so that is what I'm pushing a lot through these webinars, is just to open up some questions and some ways for people to think about things, especially the emotions that are starting to come to the surface, and to use that opportunity for growth and development. So I'm hoping you're finding these interesting and a great opportunity to do just that. So what I want to talk about a little bit is about, what we've covered so far. And I know last week's lesson was a lot about where we put our attention is where we put our energy. And the idea that when we put our attention outside of ourselves and we give it up to either the future, so in the sense of, I'm just going to wait for this to show up. So I'm just going to sit here and be in my current state and be in my discomfort, and I'm going to wait for that. Or we give it to the past, and we start thinking about everything that could have, should have, would have happened in the past, and we start to feel all the negative emotions of that. Or we give it up to someone else. I'm just, I'm going to wait for my boss to recognize me, or I'm going to wait for my spouse to approve of me or appreciate me. I'm going to wait for my kids to grow up and get some development. Or I'm going to wait, and we put all our attention outside, or our energy outside of us. Then what we are effectively doing is we are giving our power away. And we are basically saying that I am powerless. I am completely powerless to change my way, to change my state, to change the outcome of my life. And all that power sits outside of myself. And what I want to encourage people to see is when they do that, because that's typically how we are raised or programmed, or how we're told to be, and to just have some awareness, first of all, that when we're doing that, and then bring our attention right back to the present moment and ourselves, and to say, oh, I'm doing it again. I am focusing on my spouse, and I'm just ruminating and fixated on his or her behavior and what they are or not doing. And instead, I'm going to bring that energy that I'm spending doing that, I'm going to bring it all back to me right here, right now. And I'm going to focus on myself. And how am I showing up? And what's going on for me? And how can I respond differently to this situation? What choices do I have? What would be the best choice for me right now? Is it to engage or is it to not engage? Is it to walk away and give myself some space? Is it to find a different way to respond to that person so maybe they aren't feeling the emotions that they're feeling? Is there a different response that I could take on? Is there different words I could use? And bring that power back and realize that you have the ability, and this is our wonderment, is that we have this ability to manage all of that. And then when we do, we realize that we can manage our life and we can manage our the outcome of our life, that we are spend so much of our life just waiting to show up, and we can start to have it show up bit by bit, starting right now. So the idea is that we want to get out of this idea of life is happening to me, because when we say that, when this is happening to me, when my job is happening to me, my relationships are happening to me, my circumstances, my financial state is happening to me, my health is happening to me, then basically we're putting ourselves in victim mode, and we're giving ourselves the status of a victim. And when we can see that life is actually happening for me, and what is the for me about? It's for the lessons. Life is happening for me. It's setting me up so that I can be the best person I can. And it's just my choice as to whether or not I'm going to take these lessons. It's my choice as to whether or not I'm going to find the gold, or am I just going to continue to mine for the rocks? And that is a choice that we all have every day, each and every day. And so when we realize that life is happening for us, we then can start to really sometimes look at our past, not with disdain or discomfort or embarrassment, but to look at our past and see how our past experiences, although for some negative, very negative, problematic, troublesome, painful, have actually gotten you to the point that you've got some emotional musculature, you've got some ways about you to get you through what you're facing today. So I look at what's going on today, and the fact that we are in this lockdown and we are focused on quite a bit of economic uncertainty, and there's really is a need to just let go of trying to forecast and predict the future because it's so uncertain. And I look at my past and I see the path that my past has taken and all the missteps, if you want to call it, but now I see they aren't missteps, but the twists and the turns that it took, and how those situations, how getting myself into those problems and getting myself out, how facing those demons got me to where I can flourish really in this environment, that I can produce, I can be good, I can be centered, I can manage for the most part very well in this environment. And it's only because of those past experiences that is possible. And me experiencing this environment and this challenge is setting me up for the future. So instead of seeing COVID is happening to me or to us, if we could see it as that it's happening for us, it's to get us to the next evolution of our development, collectively and individually. And when we put the spin on that and we really center ourselves on that thinking, we are no longer victims, we are no longer sufferers, we are actually experiential. We're going through this as an experience, and we are miners. We're mining for the gold, the lessons. And for that, on that note, today's webinar is entitled Opportunity for Lessons. That is the entitlement for today's webinar. So what we do know, the foundational thoughts that we've put down with regards to these webinars is the fact that our emotions are nothing to be afraid of. As a matter of fact, I encourage people, or I've been encouraging you to have some curiosity around your emotions instead of fear. Have some curiosity as to what exactly is showing up and why, and how does it feel, and how does it feel if I just stay with it, if I just am with these emotions. So our emotions are nothing to be afraid of. They're just they're chemical residue of either a thought or a memory. So we know that our thinking and our memories trigger our neurology, and we know that sets up chemistry in our brain. And based on how those thoughts or memories are coming in, whether they're positive and pleasant or whether they're negative and not pleasant, will trigger, will result in a chemistry that is now present in our state, in our body, and this chemistry will equal whatever the thought or the memory is. So our emotions, we talked about, are really just indicators as to what is going on for us neurologically. And I think I used the analogy of, we want to know what's going on under the hood of our car. We want to know if everything's working well, and we have indicators in our car telling us when it is and when it is not. And we're happy to have those indicators, because when they go off, it tells us to stop and become curious and take some action. And so our emotions are very much like that. When they go off, meaning they start to show up as very constrictive emotions, not the positive, expansive emotions, but the constrictive emotions, then it's an opportunity for us to stop, become curious, and to look under the hood and find out what is it that we are thinking about, or that we're remembering, or that's coming up for us that is causing us to feel this way. And then once we do that, now we have opportunity and we have a chance to change that. So again, not to be afraid of our emotions, but to have curiosity about them and to be happy they're there. It is the natural state of our body makeup for them to exist. And it's a positive thing to feel all of our emotions, and a healthy adult will feel all of their emotions. A healthy adult will feel the range of everything, but will just know how, and that it's okay, and they will process it and they will move through them. We also talked a little bit about the fact that we are living in a very paradoxical time with this constriction on our outside movement in the real world, and yet this abundance of freedom within our inside world, in our homes, and how that paradox can be a little unsettling and a little painful and a little frightening and a little not very productive for some of us. So we talked a lot about the fact that we've realized that what we really need is structure in order to feel less anxiousness about this. So the idea of looking for where and how in our current inside life we can put in structure so that we feel less anxious about what we're going through. And we also talked about the idea of being flexible, and that was the last webinar, the idea of being improv artists. And when we want to be really flexible and be able to go with the flow, the idea is that we want to get out of our heads. And I told the story of being in the improv class, and that when I was really in my head about and embarrassed and thinking about what I was going to say next and what's the person in front of me going to say, because I have to respond to that, and trying to anticipate that and forecast it, I was not able to be the best person at that in that class. I was not able to show up my best self. And when I just let that go and just trusted that I will show up, I will respond positively, something will come up, I will know what to say, I will know what to do. It will all be revealed in its time, in its appropriate time. When that was my way of being, then I was able to respond and react and enjoy the experience, where before it was painful and not good, and now I was all of a sudden enjoying. So the idea here, we're being asked to be very improvisational and to just trust that as this all unfolds, we don't know where it's going, as it all unfolds, we will respond, we will have the tools, we will have the resources, we will have the knowing to how to respond in the best way. So moving on to today's lessons, is the idea is lessons for opportunity for lessons. And I want to first identify for you that there's really 4 elements of any kind of intervention that we want to take with ourselves. And the 4 elements are biological, social, spiritual, and psychological. So biological, social, spiritual, and psychological. So we've dealt really well with the first 2 in regards to the COVID crisis. Biological, meaning I think we've all figured out how to get food, what food we should eat, how to look after ourselves and our family with regards to sustaining ourselves with nutrition. We know we're going to stay away from sugar. We're going to reduce our alcohol intake. We know that we're going to eat whole foods, eat as much fruit and vegetables. We're going to get outside to get some vitamin D. We're going to get our exercise in. We're going to do all that. So biologically, that was kind of our first element or area that we went for, attack or to take some action. And I think there's a great understanding with all of us generally as to how to do this. Then we moved into social. And so the idea of how are we going to stay connected? How am I going to do my work? How am I going to stay connected to my family now that I can't see them? So we all took up the challenge, some of us it was more challenging than others, to learn how to stay connected. Zoom became just easy peasy for a lot of us that had troubles with it maybe before. FaceTiming became second nature. I've got my 86-year-old mother here, and she's using FaceTime for the first time in her life. So we're all learning how to stay socially connected. So biological and social, those two elements of any intervention, I think those two we're doing quite brilliantly at. Where we want to talk about today is spiritual and psychological. Those are the other two elements left in the elements of intervention that I think we deserve some reflection on today. So spiritual is how are we staying connected to our power? How are we staying connected to our higher self and our ability to keep our consciousness not down into negativity and fear and feeling really constricted, but keeping our consciousness up in the high flowing states, in the state of where we see that we are energetically connected to everything in our universe. We're energetically connected to each other, even if we can't be sitting or standing next to each other. We are still energetically connected, and we are energetically connected to the planet. And I think we're seeing that more than ever, how we impact the planet. We're all talking now, I think everyone's appreciating that now that we've slowed down our activities, the planet seems to be taking a big breath of relief. There is more birds available for us to view and watch. We're seeing the sky is much more clear because of the less contaminants from pollution. We're seeing all that kind of connection with the universe. The plants obviously are showing some kind of relief from the less impact of us as human species and what we're doing to the planet. So we're seeing how we're connected to everything. Even the idea that something can happen in China now, and look how it's affecting the whole world, and how truly connected we are in a physical way by moving around. But I want to say that energetically, I want us to understand how connected we are really energetically. And Marianne Williamson has said this as a way of kind of setting up this COVID situation and how we all feel we want to do our part. And for some of us that aren't directly impacting the healing from this, the many of us that aren't truck drivers, we're not grocery store clerks, we're not frontline doctors, we're not nurses, we're not aged home care workers. We're not those people that are in the front line. Do we really have a role, or are we just sitting here and waiting for the others to do our work? And she so brilliantly says that, no, we all have a role to play. And so she sees the people that are, the scientists that are madly working on understanding this virus and how to contain it and how to combat it, that she sees them, she calls them the army. And then she sees that the Navy are those that are out there in the front lines, the clerk at the grocery store that's pushing your groceries across the scanner, the person working at the hospital, the nurses, the doctors, etc. Those are like the Navy, they're in the front lines. And then the rest of us have a very important job. We're the Air Force. And what she means by saying we're the Air Force is the fact that we are the ones that can do the energetic work. And because we live in a vibrational universe, and because at the end of the day, we are all energy, that by keeping ourselves associated to the higher states of emotions, the bigger emotions, the expansive emotions, and really doing our work every day to make sure that we're there and not in fear and not in stress and not in overwhelm, but we're actually in faith and in hope and in joy and in happiness and in centeredness and these types of emotions. By doing our work every day, like the people have to go to the work every day in the hospital, in the grocery store, etc., we need to do our work every day, that we are contributing also to the ease and the exit from COVID. So we want to understand that we have work to do too, and it's energetic work, and that is our spiritual work. And when I do my work, it is helping you, and when you do your work, it is helping me, and we are all helping so many others by staying in our very higher vibrational work. So that is the spiritual lessons that need to, or the intervention, the spiritual intervention that we need to make sure we've got going on. So we're doing our biology, we're doing our good food, good exercise, we're doing our social, we're connecting, we're making sure we're reaching out, we're having that social connection. If we're doing our spiritual and we're doing the work to stay in a higher emotional states, then what's left is psychological. And I think for many of us, we need to decide, is this COVID experience, is this the experience, is this big enough for us yet? Let's just talk individually here, but is this big enough yet for us as an individual? Is this painful enough for us to do our work? And what I'm hoping is that for most of us, it is painful enough, that this is a big enough tap on the shoulder to say, okay, I'm going to take this lesson and the gift of this time that this has given me, because lots of times we don't get the lessons with time. Sometimes we only get the lessons and then we're short on time, or we feel that we need to make time. We don't need to make time this time. Time is here. So is this the time for our lessons, to really face them and to really do the work on the psychological intervention part? So we all know that I've read the other day that domestic violence is going up, and it has in the last couple of weeks. Phone calls to helplines are maxing out, and we know anxiety and depression are showing up more and more. And a lot of this is not because of COVID, although that is a trigger, but it's because our distractions have been taken away. So the usual distractions that we've used to manage these the uncomfortableness with our psychological issues that we've been avoiding for the most part have been taken away. So we can't go to the mall and shop it out. Maybe we can't get together with our buddies and go to the pub and drink it out and do that. Or we can't go on a big expensive vacation and sit on a beach somewhere and just pretend it doesn't happen. So a lot of our interventions are gone. And so what's coming up is that the issue is just really staring us in the face. So really, when you come down to it, we have two choices. With that realization, we have two choices. We can either recognize and explore what's going on for us and say, here it is, and this is my time to do it. Or we can allow it to cause more damage, let time go by, allow it to cause more damage, because we know as we sit in those emotional states that are negative, it is damaging over time. We've talked about that. And we can just survive this. And we can just survive this. And for some, that is the choice that they will choose. And what I'm offering is that we have compassion and we have understanding for people that is their choice. And because everyone's on their own path. Everyone is on their own path to healing and evolution and life lessons. I'm just offering to you, is this the time for your lesson? And if it is, then this is a brilliant opportunity. And we should really rejoice and be happy about this opportunity being ahead of us. So assuming that we want to move forward and dive into the lessons, then we take a look and we say, okay, so how am I responding today? So is my anxiety, my trauma, my agitation, my drinking, my fighting with family, my frustration with my coworkers, is this working for me? Is how I am doing it today, is it working for me? And if you were to really realize that we're not getting, when we do that, we're not getting what we want. It's a response. It may feel good in the moment, but it is not getting us what we ultimately want, because what we ultimately want is we want ease, and we want joy, and we want happiness. That is what we're ultimately striving for in this life experience. So that is not getting us what we want. And if that is not getting us what we want, and we are willing to accept that that's not working, then we can ask ourselves, we can either say, well, there's nothing I can do other than that, so I don't see any options, and so I'm just going to stay stuck in that way of responding. And that's back to sitting in blame. And you kind of have come full circle with that logic, if you see that. Or you keep going down the path of development, and you say, then I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to accept that there's got to be a lesson here and a better way. And so Eckhart Tolle came out with a great saying. Well, it came through on my Twitter this weekend, so it may not be new. It's just the first time I saw it, and I loved it. It said, forget your life situation for a while and pay attention to your life. Your life situation exists in time, and your life is now. So what he's trying to say is that our life situation, what we all like to talk about with regards to our life, is really, again, outside of us. It exists in time. It's either we're talking about what happened to us or what's going to happen to us, or the externals outside of us, our money, our job, our relationships. Those things are outside of us. That's our life situation. But he's saying where life truly is not in time, but is in now. And to focus less on the situation, the external, and come back inside to the now. And when you do that, when you come back and you sit with the now, then you are actually living in the beauty of the present moment. So what we really want to realize is that it's not our relationships with our job, our relationships with our parents or our children or our spouse or our money, or even with our health, that are so important that we need to manage. We also say we also got to manage our situations, our relationships, manage our relationships. What we want to really focus on is our relationship with ourselves. That is the primary relationship that we need to focus on. And the good news is that when we are really concerned just with a relationship with ourselves, meaning, how do I feel about myself? Meaning, I'm going to be less concerned about what others think about me, and I'm going to be more concerned about how I think about myself. And when we really focus in on how do we really think about ourselves, we can ask ourselves some tough questions, and we can ask ourselves, am I really showing up as my best self? Did I really handle that situation with compassion or with love? Or did I really just lash out? Did I really face that test with my best abilities, or did I really slough it off? And when we really ask ourselves the deep questions of how am I showing up truly, then we can start to find the lessons for moving forward. And we can start to then realize that we want to show up differently. And that's where it all starts, is just with that decision of how I've done things so far to date is not getting me where I want to be today. And it's certainly not going to get me where I want to go tomorrow, because you can see where you're going. It's the path, the trail of breadcrumbs that you've left so far. So if you follow that trail of breadcrumbs, which has gotten you today, and you continue it out, you can see where you're going to go. And if it's not in the direction upon which you really want to go, then just having that appreciation and accepting that is the way to then say, I need then to just respond and show up differently. And here's where I'd like to offer you something to think about. It's not, well, we are actually, we're in a pandemic, but we're also in a panic-demic. You see what I mean? We're in a pandemic and also a panic-demic, meaning that there's fear, and there should be fear. There should be fear about the economy. the recession, the jobs that will come back, the jobs that won't come back, the how am I going to move forward? That's logical and expected and appropriate fear and concern. Then there is illogical panic and terror and anxiety. And if that is showing up, then that has nothing to do with anything that's going on right now. That has to do with trauma and anxiety and fear, and exaggeration on that fear is the response that's showing up. Then it is generally, it's a state that is a fear response to something that is much deeper. It's a response to what I like to call is a core wound, or a way of associating to oneself, but I like to really use the idea of a core wound. And so it's not the event ever. It's not the event that is causing the anxiety, the fear, the trauma. It's the triggering of the core wound caused by the event, which is causing the anxiety, the fear, the trauma. So the real work is to find out what the core wound is and to work with that. That is the real work that is available. That's the opportunity for the lesson that is available. And it's the event that did not cause the response. It only triggered it. And so what's lovely about this is to realize that there's nothing broken, nothing wrong with any of us. How we're showing up is just our typical response to how we were taught or how we did things in the past. When we step up and we see it's not how we want to continue on, it's not getting us what we want, then that is a realization and an aha moment. And that's brilliant. There's no shame in that. There's actually respect and pride in having that ability to say that and to step up to that. And then the idea that we're not broken, we all just have these core wounds, these core negative ways of thinking about ourselves, our safety, typically our safety, or our abilities. And that these events in life come upon us to really make us aware of these core wounds so that we can get past them. And so the question really comes down, is COVID-19 an event that is triggering your core wound? And if so, then if that's something that you can work with and find out, yes, it is, because I'm having a rational response. I'm not living in just normal or expected fear and concern. I'm living in a rational over response. Then there's an opportunity to flush out that core wound and to deal with that. And there is the opportunity for a lesson. So spiritually, we have this ability to see that we're connected energetically, and that by doing our emotional work, surrendering to our emotions, not being afraid of them, sitting with them, allowing them to process so that we can rise up to the higher emotional levels, that we are doing our spiritual interventions, and that we're all connected, and it's helping not only us, but everyone around us in our immediate and larger way. And then there's the opportunity for the lesson, the psychological lesson. The psychological lesson, which before we've managed it with distraction, we've managed it with responses that didn't work. We've managed it by lots of ways. But now we're realizing that some of those ways have been taken away and that we can't do that anymore. And so now is an opportunity for us to really say, there is something bigger here for me to learn. And I can look at this core wound and I can flush it out once and for all so it does not show up any longer in my life. So my challenge for you today, I see we've gone on over a few minutes, I apologize. My challenge for you today is just to go back and do some work with regards to being alone. You know, the ascended masters, the monks, the people that are highly spiritual, highly centered, what we call the ascended masters, they've been meditating and living in silence since the beginning of time for thousands of years, and they're not doing it if it didn't if it didn't work, if it didn't give some enlightenment. And so I think we need to sit back and say, how can I take on some of that? And so my challenge to you is to just find whatever is comfortable, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, to sit with yourself and to allow yourself to just let whatever needs to come up, and to then journal it out if necessary. And what I mean journal is not about conscious what I should write down. It's just allowing whatever's to come out and just write it out. And it doesn't have to be in perfect English. It doesn't have to be well dictated. It doesn't have to follow grammar. Just let it come out and let it start to bubble to the top. And ask yourself, what is going on for me here? What am I choosing to remember? And what about that remembering, or what about this feeling, what I'm feeling right now, needs and wants to come up to the top? So that is today's lesson. It's all about opportunity for a lesson. And is this the opportunity for you to move forward and to do some deep work? I look forward to talking to you in a couple of days. And till then, I wish everyone to stay safe and to stay home. Bye for now.